This is the lymphatic system, and this is one of the more odd. It's a body system that you really don't hear about unless somehow bad subjects. It involves cancer or maybe it becoming blocked at some point. But it's a very important system. It does a few things. One thing it does is it returns any excess fluid that builds up in tissues back to the bloodstream, and I'll show you that. Another thing it does is it helps absorb fat, a part called a lacteal in the digestive system. Not really going to talk about that much. But the other really important function is it is involved, it's immunity. Your immune system, your armies are stored within the lymphatic system. So I'm going to start here first. So the lymphatic system is a vast collection of cells and biochemicals that the organs and glands, and the organs and glands that produce them. I'll go through all the organs with you, and I'll show you everything. And it is a network, and I gave you access to this. This is out of one of the higher end textbooks. So here we have this person. And a lot of times they don't really show below the thighs because there are no lymph nodes in the legs. Has to be a mobility thing. You do have some lymph nodes here in the elbows. So you can imagine these green vessels. And pretty much everywhere there's an artery and vein, a person would have a lymphatic vessel. So here you have this area. You have this thing here called the Cisterna Chyl. And then you can see it's just basically a network. And one of the things I also like about this picture, you can tell the different colors. See how this side is kind of greenish, and then you have basically this pink look all over everywhere else. This side of the body, the right arm and the chest, drains up and dumps right here in what are called the subclavian veins. This side, called the thoracic duct, basically picks up the fluid from everywhere else. So that's kind of interesting. And you see they go all the way up in here, lymph nodes. So we'll go through that. And then I also gave you this, which is a diagram that shows, so here's tonsils, a thymus, the spleen, little side stitch organ. These are called Peyer's patches, the appendix, and that's also a diagram that shows all the different lymphatic organs. So, like I had said, functions of the lymphatic system, returning excess interstitial fluid, and I'll show you that, and small proteins back to the bloodstream, and helping defend the body against disease. So we'll do this as always, probably have 3 videos, and then we'll go through these 2, and then the absorption of emulsified fat is an important part, and that's really more of a digestive thing. So lymphatic capillaries, we'll start here first. Now, this was out of a Holes textbook. Okay, we kind of covered, we talked about arterioles, and then venules, and veins, and arteries in the cardiovascular system. Here is a capillary bed, and we talked about that. Remember, precapillary sphincters, things like that. So here are the lymphatic capillaries, and you can see the arrows are going this way, and you have them over here. So what ends up happening, when the heart contracts, there's a big surge of pressure, and blood is going through these capillary beds. Well, these capillaries are so permeable that the amount of pressure on this end created by heart contractions actually forces water into these tissue spaces. Most of that water, when the pressure drops on the venule side, there's very little pressure in veins. Most of that water moves back into the capillary end here by osmosis. Blood has a high osmotic pressure. Whatever is left that doesn't end up draining back into the capillary end of a venule or vein on this side is collected by the lymphatic system. And that's why anything in your body, microbes, unfortunately maybe cancerous cells, if they get inside the lymphatic system, they can travel body wide. So that's the very first function is, and this is another picture. This is also a picture of a capillary bed, but you can kind of see there interstitial fluid, which is the fluid between cells and tissues. It's called interstitial fluid, is moving into these capillaries of the lymphatic system, and then it will actually start going through this pathway I have shown you earlier. And yes, these vessels, I'll show you that in a minute, they connect to lymph nodes, and then they exit a lymph node, and they gradually make their way back up into here, where it will dump into the subclavian before the blood goes into the superior vena cava. Okay, so lymphatic vessels, and they do have valves, just like veins. See down here, this is on your outline page. It's showing lymph flow, and then see the valves. They're there to prevent backflow. There's no pressure in the lymphatic system, so it relies on the same kind of thing that venual blood or venous blood relies on. Body motions, breathing, constriction of the bigger trunks or vessels that help push it through the system. But a lymphatic vessel, it says they contain valves in the inner walls. As lymph flows, they go through lymph nodes along the pathway. And as lymph passes through a lymph node, the nodes act as a filter. And I'll show you that here in a minute, here in just a second. So see all these green, all these down here, all of this, these are all lymphatic vessels. The bigger ones are called trunks, and then the ones that dump up here are called ducts, D-U-C-T. There's only 2 ducts. This is the biggest trunk in the abdomen, called the Cisterna Chyl. But yeah, lymph is going to flow up through here. Once it's collected by those capillaries, it starts draining up this way. And somewhere along here, I should have a really good lymph node picture, and I do. So here is, see, here's the water going, or I'm sorry, interstitial fluid going into the capillaries. It collects excess interstitial fluid. And then, like it says here, muscle activity forces fluid through the vessels. The valves prevent blood flow. Some pressure inside helps as well. But, and I don't like to bounce around, I'm sorry. But so one of these lymph nodes, and you can see, look, those little bean-shaped structures, those are lymph nodes. They're found all over the place. Up in the neck, up in here. One of the reasons the doctor checks the neck sometimes, if you have an infection, you're going to have swollen lymph nodes, which is a sign of an infection. So this is another great diagram. So here is a lymph node. Lymph nodes are separated into compartments here. These are called trabeculae, which are areas of connective tissue. They go through here and here like that. These are nodules, which are areas with lymphoid tissue. The germinal center would be the lighter colored areas, and they have white blood cells. This is called an afferent vessel. Afferent refers to vessels or a mechanism that's going into an organ of some kind. Here's an efferent. It's exiting on this side. And then you can see the red and blue artery and veins. So everywhere there's a vessel, you have arteries and veins. But anyway, you see it separated into compartments. The trabeculae, which is right, actually it's not even on here, but those little white areas, that's connective tissue, and it separates this whole lymph node into compartments. This is a nodule, like I mentioned, and I mean to repeat myself. This is a germinal center, the lighter white areas in the middle of one of these nodules. That's a nodule. In fact, it's labeled right there. So lymph is flowing into this way, and then it's exiting here. If there are any microbes within a person's lymphatic system, when they start going through here, you can see this. Macrophages, those are monocytes, the big white blood cells. They're just kind of an activated monocyte. Here are T cells, and then here are B cells. T cells and B cells are part of specific immunity, which is the whole immune response to, if you've had an illness before or been vaccinated, they're very specific. They're only going to attack their stimulus. Their antigens are their antigen binding sites are very specific for a specific antigen. Yeah, and as it flows through, if there's microbes here, they get attacked, going to get cleaned out. The fluid leaving probably still has microbes in it, right? Because it's one lymph node. But you can tell here, look, if you have some in the elbows, see, they're going to go through these. It's going to go through these. It's going to go through those. So it's going to make a trip through several, hundreds of lymph nodes on the way back to the bloodstream. And it would keep doing that. So that's one of the reasons it's involved with immunity. Now, like I had mentioned, it collects excess fluid. You saw how a lymph node works. The vessels flow into lymph nodes, and they have valves. The lymphatic trunks are the larger ones. They continue on from vessels. They're almost like an artery, and a vessel's like an arteriole. The big one called the Cisterna Chyl, which is that one there. Some of the bigger lymphatic trunks, and then eventually they lead to what are called collecting ducts. The right lymphatic duct and the thoracic duct. So that's a good introduction into how the lymphatic system works. All right, I'm going to give you a little virtual tour, and you can actually make the lungs show up. If I wanted to, I might get a little close, but you can see the green vessels here. If you come back out, there's a couple of, I'm going to take the lungs away, but I'm going to click over here on the arm, the elbow right there, get a little closer. Get a little higher up maybe. Let's go up here. There we go. Okay. There they are. See little lymph nodes? These are the super trochlear lymph nodes. And you can see the vessels. And let me back this up. Go kind of toward the upper. Let's go up in the neck. Back up some more. Here we go. And you can really get an appreciation for these lymph nodes. Let me back up. See that? I'm going to turn it this way a little bit. But see them everywhere? And they're located especially in the neck. And that probably has to do with the fact that the mouth is there, and then you have a lot of blood flow areas that are coming up right there where the subclavians are. Sorry, I'm not trying to make you dizzy. Let me get somewhere and stay. But you can see all of the lymphatic vessels. If you go up here, oop, you got super close. You can see the ones in the face. And I'm going to click on this and probably stay right where I am. Let's do that right there. Boom. Now we're really close. But you can see them everywhere. And you can see the vessels here, and you can see they go through the lymph nodes. You can actually, if you scroll down here, and if you took away probably the heart, there's the pulmonary, or the aorta, excuse me. Let me click on that. All right. Let's take away the heart. There we go. Now, down here, I talked about this earlier. There it is. Let me get right there. There's the Cisterna Chyl. Big trunk in the abdomen. It's kind of a landmark. It gets nicked sometimes during surgery, believe it or not. Here is some of the other... And look, the smaller vessels now, the ones that are the larger trunks are showing up in the money. But I wanted just to show you, you can see where the lymphatic system goes. It's spread out a little bit everywhere. You can see all of those in here. So that's a really neat way of looking at everything as far as where it goes. I will start here next.